For my reflective presentation, I decided to draw out some of the things that I'm going to take away from the LA class. It's going to be things that I learned in the class based on readings that we had, but also a lot of my experiences that I've had in the classroom and like maybe through my review sessions and stuff. I really saw the LA position as definitely a great learning experience. I thought I was just going to get more experience teaching math, but it meant so much more to learn about teaching strategies and mentoring and basically in addition to all the education classes I've been taking. Funny enough, I think this is one of the most influential education classes that I've ever taken, even though it's not actually an education class. One of the first things that we started on were open-ended questions. I think this was one of the greatest topics to start on because it really helped me start engaging with the students. One of my main worries about becoming a teacher and also being in the LA position was that I was kind of spoon feeding the answers to my students. Sometimes they wouldn't really answer me right away, so I'd end up giving them the answer sometimes. But learning about open ended questions really helped me figure out how to phrase what I was saying so that instead of kind of giving them the steps, they were finding the steps themselves to the answers. One thing I learned when giving my own lesson in the class when I talked about learning strategies was that discussions are so much better than lectures. I really thought that I preferred lectures when I'm in my math classes or anything, but in this class, as a student learning, but then also as the person giving the lesson, I realized that discussions are just so much better. They're more engaging. We covered more topics. It got more personal. We talked about our own experiences, and I felt like we learned more from that than when I was giving the straight up definitions of like different types of memories. And that kind of tied into when we were learning Bloom's taxonomy. That was also one of the first topics we talked about. I learned a lot about it during my other education classes with the steps of like remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Kind of ties into like the questions and like how far is a student moving along, what type of questions you can ask. So I really like those three kind of combined of how to be the best kind of learning assistant question wise. For my next section, I really want to talk about the behind the scenes in education. It's something that I learned about in my diversity and education class, but it just continued on in this one. So it started off with learning about the microaggressions in our diversity inclusion session. It's something that I heard about before. I actually went to the same session about a year ago, but it's always nice to get that reminder and have it in the back of your head to always think about what you're saying. Uh, Something can slip, or even maybe it's not even a microaggression, but it's good to think about what you say in the classroom can affect students' learning. I saw that when I was giving my own lesson, when we learned about the effects of emotions on a student's learning. I don't want my teaching, me being a learning assistant, my like attitude or something like that to affect a student's learning. That's a complete opposite of what I'm trying to do. I want people to enjoy math. So it was nice to kind of learn that like I need to kind of watch myself and make sure I am being a positive influence on the students. And then one thing I went to for another diversity inclusion session was about poverty, just kind of insinuating that really there is so much that can go on behind the scenes that can affect students' learning. It's not that they're maybe lazy, it's not that they're not trying in the class, but you have to kind of approach each student with an open mind, understand that everyone's going through different things. So that was I wasn't expecting to learn that from the session. I don't think that was the main goal of the session, but it's what I took away from it. The next section in the orange that I want to talk about is everything with group work. Before I started the class, I was very anti-group work. I kind of preferred working as an individual. But watching the POGL teaching method in my Calc 1 class, doing group work in our own class, and then also learning about team dynamics with the forming, storming, norming, and performing really opened my eyes to it is so much better to work in a team. Even though LA is kind of like, you kind of seem like, oh, well, I'm focusing on my class. It was nice to have those bouncing off where it's like, hey, what's working with your group? Are you doing Quizlets? Are you doing review sessions? Are you making videos? How's your office hours? Roses and Thorns was a great way to start every class, so I really did enjoy that. And kind of how we were our own small team. I love that we had the in-person session because it was a small group of 6 of us, and we kind of got to shoot off what we're doing in each of our classes. The next section in the pink that I want to talk about is mentoring. So I've had different mentoring roles, but I've always felt I've never been a good mentor. I feel like I lack that ability to have those tough conversations that you may have, kind of in regards to what I was talking about in the green with like the poverty and emotions. But kind of connected with the first gen low income as well. That was really important to learn about. It's something that I'll have to think about when I become a teacher myself. And then also one of the most important things was the growth mindset. That was another thing we started off learning at the beginning of the semester. I felt I didn't have a growth mindset, so it was important to learn about that so I could pass it on to the students that I was being a learning assistant for. The next section in the black, I kind of want to just talk about all the different teaching methods that I learned during the semester. One of the main reasons I became in LA was because I actually picked the class first. I thought off the name of math and science education would be a great elective as an education major to take when I wasn't taking my field experiences. But it ended up being the LA position, and I was like, another chance to teach math, I'll take it. But one of the things I love doing my lesson on forming memories and different learning strategies. Um, it's kind of hard to think like I just think practice is the best way to teach. But it was nice to learn all the different methods of like spacing and timing, being engaging, for different ways to make sure that students are actually remembering what they're learning. Also, the difference between formative and alternative assessment, kind of mixing the two, that not one's better than the other. I always thought it was, oh, always do alternative because it's not those standardized tests, but it was nice to see that it's better for a mix of both. And then metacognition, another thing that I just loved learning about, were like figuring out how a student really does learn. And to finish off in the red, I just really enjoy math. I enjoy doing the learning, the review sessions, my office hours. It has been a great experience being a learning assistant. I've enjoyed the experience entirely and taken a lot away from it.